The Hour of Empower, LinkedIn Live. Today's word of the day is invest. I mean, it has so many meanings, like so many other words. Chat's open. We depend on you to direct us, and we want to be as relevant and as valuable as we can with the time we have. So we're here for you because without you, there is no program. So, with that said, I want to just turn it over to Kelly, get her ideas on initial thoughts on invest, because you always start where you initially think of the word. At the end of the program, you start to really understand how much it can mean. Kelly?
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. My initial thoughts, obviously, one with Brett being here in financial services, and I served a majority of my career in financial services, capital markets, private equity. So investment is all about immediately was investing money into something to get a return. Um, but yeah, then of course I started to think about it a lot. So it is going to go, I have no doubt, in so many different directions because I think showing up here every morning is an investment of time and self. So I think the investment that we have personally of what we choose, who, like we were just saying before we went live about who we surround ourselves with, that's an investment of who we're choosing to be with and share ourselves with and show up for. um, I'm excited to hear what other people have to say too, because I know this can go in so many different directions. But of course, initially I went right away to financial. So Brett, we're so excited to have you back again, and would love to know what your initial thoughts are.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kelly. Thank you, Donald, for inviting me on the program again. It's always a pleasure to be here. I've been looking very forward to that. Yeah, I mean, we can use, given our similar backgrounds, finance as a background, and then we'll translate that, both of us, into how people can apply this in their lives as well. But yeah, I mean, all of you watching us right now and engaging with us, and please do so. You could be doing something else right now with your time. So you've chosen to invest an hour with us, and hopefully an hour every day. That Donald's created a platform. Sometimes he does triple headers, double headers, and that's great. And if you have the stamina and but no, seriously, if you have the time to actually do that, it is a trade off, right? Because if you elect to be here for this hour, we're all here right now. You could be doing something different, right? And so I think that that's really the first premise of investment is where are you going to put your money or your time in this particular case? And then the only thing I'd add, Kelly, on top of what you said would be it's all about risk, right? And so obviously you want to go for a return, but what is the risk involved with that as well? And I personally view, when I saw the keyword last night, I Donald sent me a little note and said the keyword's invest, and that's all he dropped here. So the rest is just coming off the top of our heads, plus whatever the audience wants to engage with, as well, and participate, and please do so again. But basically, it involves investing your time. And if you invest your time on developing yourself and your own performance, it's actually risk-free. Okay. And you're not going to find a better financial investment anywhere in the world that's risk-free, right? So start with yourself, because the risk is virtually zero, right? The only risk is your opportunity cost in terms of what you could be doing differently, but we've covered that. But it's the risk is so low in terms of investing an hour of your time, for example, right now, to learn something from people with extensive experience, and then also your ability to teach that to other people as well is a huge investment.
That was so well articulated, Brett. And Kelly, you make such an excellent point, uh, because we just started with money and investment, which is the first thing on people's mind when you say invest. And then Brett followed up with time, and then I'll add to it with thought. because if you're investing your time, you're investing maybe some money, but you're really investing your thought. And if you can get a return on investment on combining the three, right? Action without thought is not good action, and time without action is just a waste of time. So if you can really look at, and I think Brett's so right, people are looking to invest in companies they don't know about, don't know anything about but they won't invest in themselves by getting some personal development, right? Put $100 into a stock today, and no matter what the stock is, it's still going to be $100 plus a return if you're lucky. Put $100 into training, into learning. That pays dividends forever. And why not get yourself full? Fill yourself up with the best plan for your time and get a return on it. Just like a business plan. If you had three businesses and one was thought, one was time, one was money, how would you run those businesses? How would you invest in those? Because once you can get the benefit of it, then you can go out and start benefiting others and getting a return on your investment from others because of being better. Well, with that said, let me really run through some of the people. That's the reason we're here. Jeff is here. Jeff just came on board in the last week or so. Thank you so much. Leslie, who is just unbelievable. She'll be back doing Saturdays. And actually, Melissa Cohen, no relative of mine, will be with her this Saturday. So a good friend of Leslie's. Kinga's here. Kinga's waiting to come on. Paul, got to put a special plug in. Paul motivated me to do a LinkedIn audio event actually tomorrow, really about LinkedIn tips, strategies. I find so many people can do so well on mindset and attitude, but if you don't know best practices and protocol, you're driving with the emergency brake on without ever knowing it. And it's the little things that done right, and doing it right actually takes less time than doing it wrong and is far less frustrating. So again, as we talk about reinvesting in yourself, get your skill sets up aligned with your priority initiatives. If it's LinkedIn, get smarter, get more connected, tie into everybody else's thoughts, actions, and resources. So Paul says he's always here. Great guy. I don't know what he does for a living because every show I go, he's there. Cindy's here. Paul can maybe address that. And to Kelly and Brett's point, we'd love to hear your definition of invest, or investments you made that paid off, or investments that you're not afraid to share that didn't. Everything is a learning experience, and everybody brings more value when they contribute more insight. I found it, Paul says, I found it puzzling. People said, I don't know about investing. When everyone is an investor, we buy clothes, food, and numerous things. The question becomes, what are you investing in? Are you investing in your legacy and dreams, or growing someone else's? Well, investment in food is short-lived. When you buy a sandwich and you eat it, that's the end of it. There is no more return on it. So I think the key is, what's the difference between spending and investing? And some people don't make that distinction. I mean, they'll buy a car and it'll just appreciate like crazy, right? They know that going in, but they'll put that money in. So anyways, Brett, a lot of new comments and insights. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, people need to invest to further their purpose, whether that's time or money, right? So, because it's important that you're happy as well. I think we all know a lot of people with a lot of money that are not happy, right? And if you have a shortage of those people, just read the Hollywood Scoop, right? And you'll see just the very high number of people that are very wealthy on their balance sheet, have a high net worth, yet they're unhappy. So align it with your purpose is something that's important. And then what you've got to do, regardless of what you're investing in, right, is, and I'm also talking about not just money, but time as well. Okay, it's a broader category. Is that you've got to perform. right? So if you need to invest in yourself to do something, you're doing that to build skills, right? That the marketplace will reward as well. So performance is vital, and I have a simple performance formula that I always, advise people on, which is that there's three elements to it. It's hard work. It doesn't come easy. There's no shortcuts. It's attitude. You've got to have the right attitude, minus hypocrisy. You've got to learn how to detect hypocrisy, especially in today's world where you've got a lot of people out there, a growing number of people, including the media, but including people even on LinkedIn. It's not a majority of people, but you've got people out there attempting to monetize you, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important that you detect that. Some of those people you're going to want to bring into your circle. And it's okay for them to monetize you, because if they can further your agenda, that's perfectly fine. But if they're saying one thing, promising one thing, yet they're doing another thing, those are the people you have to be aware of, because it doesn't matter how hard you work, what your attitude is. If you fail to detect hypocrites, okay, they're going to wipe away whatever you have, and that includes your motivation, right? So I think that those are kind of important there. And there's two things to detect hypocrisy. One is critical thinking, the other is resiliency, right? And so there's a lot said there, but that's the formula for success, because you've got to perform at whatever you're deciding to do with your life. I believe, I'll conclude with this. I believe that everybody in life wants to be relevant at something. Okay. I don't know what that is. It should be individual. You should not just go with the crowd. You should be relevant at what you want to do. And if you're not sure what that is, talk to people and help to find what your purpose is in your heart as well. Don't just, get sucked into what hypocrites want you to do and earn them money, but focus on yourself.
Yeah, that's so well put. And, the beauty of these shows is you can watch them again. So you can really
Mm.
listen intently without having to take notes if you don't want to, because you can always know where it is and play it. And, I think that it is about being comprehensive. Too many people, like you say, Hollywood people did this right, that, have a skill set, made a lot of money. But because of that, it was at the cost of relationships, health, whatever the case is. And, there's a key is, are you making long-term or short-term investments, right? There's a saying, short-term gain for long-term pain, or short-term pain for long-term gain. And you choose what road you're on. And I think who's with you. And the other thing is investing, if you look at really aggressive investors, they're looking at charts and things every second, right? They're looking for changes in ways to arbitrage certain situations. And in life, you can, just like Brett says, you can identify opportunities if you're in the game, if you're aware, if you're focused. You can't play blindfolded. The other part of investment I want to share is emotional investment with people, right?
Yes.
Companion investment with people. Sometimes, how much are you investing in being with others, in supporting others, and then in turn being supported by others? Before we turn it over to Kelly, let's get some of these people in. Kinga, investing ourselves when we need healing in relationships in our communities, in the law of reciprocity, and seeing the value of others. There's so much to invest in, and you're so smart, Kinga, in that sense, because you're aware of opportunities. If you only had $1 and the only thing you ever knew was buying a lottery ticket, and that was your financial plan, right? I mean, you're going to get lucky if you get lucky, but you're going to get nothing until you get 1,000,000 to 1. And I think when people can see is, I always invested first in my family. That was always first, because I know I was going to be with them or hope to be with them for a long time. And it paid dividends. And so many people, again, make the short term, long term, or, look at the shining object. But, anyways, running ahead, Dean, great to have you. I know you had some electrical issues. I'm looking forward. So am I, Leslie and Melissa. Paul, great to see you. Leslie's okay. I'm trying to get to something a little meatier. One of the best lessons I've learned, especially on my entrepreneur journey, is that everything in life will cost time or money, and most times we get to choose. So right, there's a saying that to get rich, it's either OPM or OPT, which is other people's money or other people's time, or a combination of both of them. And I think that's the key to balance. Kelly, what are you thinking now?
So many things. Y'all hit on so many different things, but one that came right to mind when you were talking about investing in family. I don't know why this came right to mind, but growing up, my dad was very big on coupons. Like it was a challenge for him to see if he could, the red part could be longer than the black part on his receipt. But what he would do is everything that he saved, so if he saved 25 bucks or whatever it was, he would get that cash back and that would go in a savings account for family time. Because to him, family time was very important. And for us to have share memories, create memories, going on, weekend trips or long trips, whatever. But he found a way to invest by being creative, and which I always thought was really cool. And probably why when, coupons are always something that stay with me, but I've also learned, like, don't use a coupon if you don't need it. Like, you're saved money, but did you really need that thing? But then going to the personal relationship things, your formula that you mentioned, Brett, that actually works in relationships also. The hypocrisy, like seeing those things. And of course, in financial services, and I specifically worked in capital markets and private equity and Reg D products. So that's accredited investors. And there's so many different layers there of investment because, to get involved in that, and I'm sure Brett and Paul for sure understand this more than most, so I apologize. But you're investing in your wealth manager to trust them on the investment they're talking to you about. Because some of those investments are so complicated. You've got a PPM that's 230 pages long and all legalese and don't have a clue what the heck that means. But you believe you're investing in the wealth manager or the person. And it's interesting because all the sales teams that I trained during those times or worked with, is so many of the young salespeople didn't understand the fact of, hey, they're not buying how well you pitch the product. They're investing in you, the person. They can find this product anywhere, because there's thousands and thousands of options that they could use, but they're investing in you. And that goes back to the person of seeing, the hypocrisy and feeling the trust, which is part of what we invest in other people, is having a trust, knowing that we can count on them to do what they say and not have to worry about being the hypocrisy. And I also think, to go along with the hypocrisy, what you were saying is, internally, we always have something that maybe, and I know I do, and anytime I've ignored it, I'm like, dang it, I knew that was the wrong thing, and I ignored it. But I just, again, this is so cool because I love how it goes in so many different directions and how we can take it so deep and different paths. So what are your thoughts, Brett?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think that I'd just like to build off what you said, Kelly, about trust in the person that you're compensating. You're purchasing their services, their advice, their trust. They need to earn. You need to make them earn that trust, right? Yeah. So, because again, we're talking about money here, for example. If I'm going to give you $1,000 to invest for me to purchase something, I'm trusting you with that, and I'm trusting you. You're not going to guarantee the safety of that 1,000 because I understand there's a risk, and the value of that could fluctuate up and down, right? But I expect you to explain that risk to me before I purchase it, not after. And
Yes.
I ran wealth businesses all over the world, in Asia, in the Middle East, in Africa, in the UK, and even in my early days in the US. And you know um, all of the complaints happening from the thousands of people that I led, all of the complaints, when they bubble up, it usually led to the problem of the person explaining the risk, but it was too late. Okay, that it was too late. They'd already purchased the vehicle, and then interest rates had moved, or the market had moved, whatever. And then people say, "Oh, I didn't know that." So the whole key is to explain everything all the way around. The Not only the potential, by the way, not, I didn't say guaranteed, potential upside, and the potential downside for your risk tolerance, right? And I think that's the money thing. Back to the personal investing thing around that as well. The same principle could be applied, as Kelly said, right? So there's you have to learn how to detect who to put in your circle. Who are you going to listen to? Who are you going to not listen to? Who are you going to stand up to? And who are you just going to kind of ignore because they're trying to fraud you? Treat them like a mosquito. Just swat them away. They're always going to be around, right? And you
Oh
can't
yeah.
do anything about it. Okay, so don't ever, if you swat one away, don't ever expect that you're not going to see another one, because there are thousands more around. But that's why you've got to use this thing in between your ears, the brain, and apply critical thinking. And that goes contra to the big institutions in society that are attempting to program everybody what to think. You need to think for yourself. And by thinking for yourself, i.e., critical thinking, to build those skills, you can learn to distinguish, okay, this is a mosquito. This is somebody like Kelly that can really help me. And I trust her because she understands leverage, she understands capital markets, she knows what will happen if the Fed steps in, and that type of thing. Big distinction between a mosquito and Kelly. I'll stop right
I
there.
hope so.
If anybody, I
Great,
couldn't think of a different analogy. I don't know why mosquito
and that's
came up.
Hey, it worked.
that's the beauty of spontaneity and responsiveness. And actually, when I look at these replays, the thing that comes through the most is the enthusiasm, is the energy of the person speaking. And that's why the word is secondary to the delivery, the context, the tone, the facial expression. But getting back to investing,
Right.
a lot of times, like anything else, it should be enjoyable, right? If you're going to put $1 in and worry every night how that dollar is going to do tomorrow, that dollar is going to cost you more than any return you could possibly get on it. So, and a lot of times when you look at investment, you're not looking for the greatest return. You might be looking to support something, right? Something you
Mhm.
believe in that you're supporting. You're not going to get a big return, or people that need a little helping hand and you decide, hey, I'll invest in them, and the return will come in different ways, or maybe not at all. But if you're happy that when you put it in, you did it for a good purpose, right? You enjoyed it, you want to follow it, you want to learn more about it. It's access. Investing is access. When you invest in something, you take a participation in it, right? You're a shareholder,
Right. And
things that,
yeah. Mhm.
go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, Donald, if I could, this is why victimhood needs to be avoided like the plague. Because victimhood, if something happens to all of us every day, right, and every week maybe something more significant happens to us, and certainly every year we all go through there's some shock that we have nothing to do with the source of that shock. It happens to us, right? So then it comes down to, how do we deal with it, right? And we always have a choice. It's always the fork in the road. Can we play victim, right? Or are we going to continue along the pathway of the topic we're talking about today? So, one of the things that not by design, don't tell anybody, but not by design, in my career, one of the things that I developed a reputation for was navigating large teams through crisis, adversity. Things like I went through the Asian financial crisis, global financial crisis, and the post 9/11, responsible for overseeing large teams of people. And one of the things that I learned during the course of that it's important to have a very high AQ, okay, adversity quotient. And IQ doesn't do you any good during those times. Neither does EQ. EQ might do you a little bit of good, but AQ and how you deal with that adversity is important. So the only thing I'd like to add on, Don, to what you just said is to I agree with every word you said, but bolt on that adversity quotient. Okay, don't sit around waiting for it to happen every day, but make sure that you're durable enough that when it does hit, you're going to continue doing the things that Don just talked about. Because I see so many times, so many cases where people are moving along that pathway, then this shock happens to the system, i.e., COVID, i.e., a tragedy in the family, i.e., you lost 50% of your investment. Whatever that shock is, you've got to have the durability to continue to do what Don talked about. And that's the key to success.
Well, Brett, Kelly, I mean, you got a great starting point when you're coming after Brett.
I know. I mean, yeah, I can't go wrong there. It is so true. And just even you saying that about the, and investing in particular, because during the market crash, I was actually on the RIA side of the business. So I was working at a registered investment advisor when the market crashed, and which was a horrible time because so many people were, and here locally in Phoenix, particularly, signed to overinvest in real estate. So took a huge hit. And a lot of people retired early and then had to go back to work and really readjust their entire future, which was awful to watch. But it was also such a learning experience for me in the sense of, well, that's what diversification is for. One, but two is knowing that it's a long-term investment, except for some of these people who were retired. They were living on that. I only have the 4% withdrawal, and now I lost 40% of my portfolio.
Right.
That matters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I also had friends that at the time were looking at their statement daily, multiple times a day, and seeing their bet and seeing the fluctuation. And I was like, you need to stop doing that.
Right.
You're going to drive yourself absolutely mad. If you're not going to look at retiring for 25, 30, 40 years, just let it be. It will be fine. This is a long-term thing. It's not ever supposed to be day to day to day. So it was an interesting time to see how people responded and how many people, and my mom actually was one of them. She couldn't sleep at night during that time period. And I said, well, you need to do what brings you peace. Mm-hmm. And if that means you need to go all cash for a while, then you need to do that, because your investment in your mental health and yourself and your overall health is much more important than the stress that you're feeling right now. But it is kind of interesting to watch that. But you're right. It's going to happen. Something's going to happen again to all of us. And we all know it, and we all know we can get through it. And I know I've said this before, we've all survived 100% of our bad days so far. And that's a pretty good track record.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many ways of looking at investment. Well, let's go through some comments. Wesley says, as an entrepreneur, I've learned to find a harmony between investing my time or my money, and most often is a combination of both. Yeah. And it should be, and I think to Kelly's point, safety is in diversification, right? If you're spreading things around, not one thing will knock you off your perch that easily. And it gives, and some things will go up when things go down and they balance. But, again, you got to understand, are you a long-term or short-term investor? And in essence, you could break it down. Are you a gambler or an investor? Right.
Right.
People are playing options by the second and trying to get 1/10 of a point on an up and a down or something. I mean, it's just lunacy. you know?
And there's nothing wrong with gambling if people want to gamble, but for heaven's sake, if you're going to gamble, then only use 5% or less of your money, or some small percentage. I'm not saying that should be the amount allocated that well, but not 90% of your disposable
Right.
assets. You don't go gambling with that, right? So you need to be smart about it as well. That critical thinking applies to investing just as much as it does hypocrisy and determine. But if you surround yourself, here's some golden advice. If you
Mhm.
surround yourself with the right people every day, LinkedIn, like you're looking at three of them right here, right? You can check us out. You can make phone calls. You can dive into our profile, our background, our experience. You're looking at three people right now that you can trust. But who else is in your circle? And
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
kind of due diligence is in your circle? And more importantly, who are you going to listen to? Right. I'm not suggesting that you listen to the three of us every day. This is an example. We're role modeling it for you today as well. But who do you listen to in your life? And are you applying your critical thinking skills to who's in your circle? Folks, if you're not regularly hiring and firing people for your circle
Mhm.
like I do, you're doing yourself an incredible disservice, and you might as well go gamble.
You're so right, Brett. And I think in everything, you're either investing or gambling. You're investing in relationships or gambling with them.
Right.
You're keeping
Yeah.
things around too long that have played out. And the challenge most people don't understand is that change is hard for some people. Relationships and communicating and being transparent is hard for some people. But what people don't realize, when that opening comes in, what comes in with it is now
Hmm.
rejuvenation, reinvention. It's a new person where you are, where you want to be, and where you want to grow. If you look at it and you looked at this as a team, and that's what community should be, what team do you
Hmm.
want to play on? Right?
Right.
And if you ask
Yeah.
me, it's like, who won the pennant last year? Who won the Super Bowl? I
Hmm.
think I'll take a shot with those people. And you got to ask yourself, it's like being at a train station or an airport. Where is everybody going here? And is that where I want to go?
And
Right?
can they help you? Can they help you get there? And
Mhm.
can you help them get where they want to go? Right? It's an exchange right there, that
Mhm.
happens. But the people around you need to have a vested interest and to get excited for your success. That's one of the things that I determine. Not only, okay, are you telling me, yeah, I support you, Brett, and everything like that, but do I hear the excitement? Yeah, Brett, you're going to get it done, and I'm going to be right. This is what I'm going to do to help you. Those are the people you hire. And if people aren't doing that around you, I'm sorry, whether they're introvert, extrovert, they got to go from your inner
Mhm.
circle. You can still be friends, right? But
Mhm.
the inner circle is where you're going to spend 75% of your time, with that inner circle. You can spend the other 25% with the friends that, don't show that excitement for your success. That's okay. And I understand. And that can include family, by the way. It doesn't mean you don't love them, right? But who are you going to listen to on these particular topics? That's the point. Hire
Okay.
those people. Yeah.
That's very beautiful. Kelly, what's your thought?
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And it's funny when you were talking about the gambling or investing. I mean, that's such a great analogy for so many things. One of the things I remember many years ago, I knew someone who was a huge gambler. Like, I mean, she lived to gamble. She had a real Vegas slot machine in her home and poker machine that took real money.
Wow.
um, but she just loved it. And her saying was always, "Scared money never wins."
Mhm.
And I always was like, "Huh, that's interesting." And then, of course, I started paying attention to it. I was very young at the time, and I'm like, "It's so true." If you go up to the blackjack table and you're like, "Ooh, I'm going to bet $5 on this hand. I can't lose. I can't lose. I can't lose." You lose. It's usually when you're nonchalant, you don't care. That person that walks up and throws the $100 bill and doesn't even look at the cards and still takes a hit and gets 21. Um, it's just kind of fascinating how that's that applies to life just in general, and in investing or gambling with people who you do have in your inner circle. And It's such an amazing point because as we grow over time, I'm very blessed. My best friend, I've been best friends with her for 25 years, and she is an amazing human being and will always tell me like it is, which that's one of the reasons why she's my best friend. She doesn't
Hmm.
tell me what I want to hear. And that's why it's there. But over time, with other people in our lives, we don't. I don't want to say graduate, grow in the same way. We grow at different rates. So there does come a time on an occasion where we outgrow somebody, and maybe now they're not in our inner circle, but like you were saying, Brett, they're now in the outer circle, if you will, of friends, just because it's different and you've grown differently, and there's nothing wrong with that, and recognizing that, because you've got to continue to grow. And if
Right.
anything, and I actually had a client that I felt very much this way last year, was an anvil on me. It was just holding me back and holding me back, and breaking from that shackle, if you will, was just kind of like, oh God, that felt so good.
Yeah.
and and being able to recognize that when that's happening to you, to be like, I need to take a look at what's going on around me and who are the people around me and what is inspiring me, not inspiring, holding back, and readjust your path. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, because guess what? It is all about you. You get one go round here, and you need to invest the best in yourself. Um, yeah. So, what are your thoughts, Don?
Well, I've got a lot of thoughts, and I just keep learning more. And this is a great exercise. Just if the only people watching this would be the three of us, we would have uplifted each other so much and expanded our consciousness towards certain things, made ourselves more aware, and come up with new ideas on how to handle this. But first priority is the people. So Jasmine's here. Thank you. Natalie is here.
Hey,
Uh, thank you so much. Marlenis, uh, Augustine, thank you. So many new names.
yeah.
Um, Marlena's very good points. Kelly, connect with me. Paul says it's interesting because a lot of banks and institutions are going on these major social media platforms trying to influence my generation, and that's a scary thought.
Yes.
Omar's here. Omar will be coming
Mm.
back on a show. Thank you, Omar. Mental awareness is huge. I still have my first dollar. It is my Bible. I'm proud of my decisions. I'm an independent woman. Okay, our maker made us. Let's go to Randy. Haven't seen you, Randy, in a while. Stop in to say hello. Goodbye. Work expects productivity. Minerva's here. Thank you so much. Ambimbola. Oh, I haven't seen David in a while. Thanks for coming today. We need to make sure to focus on the things that matter most. Can't worry about what you can't control, or at least we shouldn't. Well, a lot of it is just priorities. I used to do a lot of turnarounds and restructurings, and that was difficult work when you first got started, but it was really gratifying when you finished and you really built a better little thing that could sustain itself versus this big thing that was going down. And it was always people, and I had to sometimes eliminate a lot of people in a very short period of time. And I heard all their stories and their issues, but there were 30 or 40% of the people who stayed. And the reason they stayed is they
Mm.
continued to invest in themselves. They continued to learn more, do more, and to Brett's point, take on responsibility. Sometimes responsibility has to be taken. It can't be
Right.
given, right? And if you step up, owning my own business for all those years, the worst of times I was looking for the best of people. The best of times I was looking for the best of people. Best people
Hmm.
never go out of style of anything. They're
Exactly.
more necessary. Be something more than you are, and you'll get more than you have. I mean, I think that's a pretty easy way to do it. Marlena's is going at it today. Uh, Linda says, and thank you, Marlena. Uh, Linda says, thankful to make it here. Happy. I had to learn to invest in self-care and being able to be a part of life, to make other choices, to invest my thoughts and life forward to, and that's the key. You need to invest.
Hmm.
You need to invest,
Yeah.
right? If you got a leaky roof, then that's your first investment, right? Because that's important.
That's right.
Now.
Yeah, and Donald, if I could just, and Kelly,
Sure.
just interject here again
Yeah.
and reemphasize the point that the key to performing is committing to working hard and committing to a positive attitude. That's everything. And then you've got to deduct, okay, from the formula, the hypocrites, right?
Mhm.
You've got to get them out. You've got to learn how to detect them, okay? Because and we're talking a lot in this around your inner circle, who you should hire, who you should fire, who you should trust. Kelly gave a great example of financial advisors, right? That they're really buying you if you're a financial advisor. So you've got to figure out though who to delete, okay, from your circle, because these people are not interested in your success, right? And
Mhm.
you don't spend all your time doing it, but you have to get good enough at it through
Mhm.
critical thinking and resiliency that you either wear them out, you ignore them, you swat them away like a mosquito, or you confront them about it, right? So you determine that based on your experience. And there's no one way to handle everybody, right? But if you can understand the framework here of attitude, hard work, and get rid of the mosquitoes, you're going to do just fine at whatever you want to achieve.
Totally agree. And
Yep.
it's and one of the things that you said earlier too, and what was just sort of hit on, some of the greatest hires I've ever made in my career were the people exactly like you talked about. Their skill set may not have matched exactly what we were
Right.
looking for, but their hunger, their eagerness, I mean, all of those things, you can't teach somebody to be that. They just are. And
Mm.
and also understanding, and I've coached some people with this as well, is knowing there's always going to be another mosquito, like you said. It has nothing to do with you, but your
Right.
light will always attract those mosquitoes. You just got to know which ones to zap. and get
Right.
out and not take it personal,
Mhm.
because it's not about you. It's
Right.
totally about them. But knowing to edit that out and, like you said, swat it away. And I honestly do think, even though it's a mosquito thing, I think it's a great visual. And I'm going to think about that now
Yeah.
all the time. And I'm so grateful that I
You
am
could
not.
come up with maybe a better analogy than I did, Kelly.
It's good
But
though. 'Cause it
anyway,
is.
yeah,
We all are a light, and I've used that as an example before. So it's like the bug zapper. Are you going to zap it, or are you going to allow it to
right.
just hang around? But it'll always be attracted to the light.
Mhm.
So I just thought that was great. So Don, what are our audience saying? I'm seeing a lot
Well,
coming in.
I see David Alto's here. I'm a big fan of David. I followed him. If you're a leader, you better share the wins of your individual team members than worrying about your own personal wins. You can always take care of yourself anytime.
Yeah.
You need to take care of who's in front of you, who needs the help the most, because leaders model and they duplicate through others. And if you invest in yourself and invest in others and invest first in others, that's the part of being proactive. But the other thing I think that drives so much and can drive so much is sense of urgency, right? When you have a sense of urgency, you don't have time to stop and chit chat. Someone says, hey, it's like, hey, I got to go somewhere. I got no time. That's what you say, and you do it, right? And instead of escaping responsibility like most people who feign, I don't have enough time. I always say, how much time don't you have? But what are you doing with your time? And what is it paying you?
Mm.
I mean, you should know what you're getting for what you're doing. And if it's just throwing away your time, then you got to throw away your big ambitions with it. You can't have
Right.
one without the other. So, I mean, get right with yourself. If you're comfortable being what most people would feel is uncomfortable, you've got an edge in that sense, right? Being humble, having humility is a benefit, but that's not an excuse, for what you could be. And here's the other thing. You don't live for yourself. You live for you and everybody around you. Can
Right.
you afford to become a disappointment when you didn't have to be somebody that people have to take care of? But anyways, I can get off in myself, but we need to go to the audience. Gambling, I don't like gambling. One of the reasons I left an ex, he gambles with more than 90%.
Oh,
That's just hard. Kinga says champions versus cheerleaders are the ones bring up your name for opportunities when you aren't in the room. Well, the thing is, everybody around you, you want to make better because they'll make you better once they can get better. Good
Yes.
leaders don't keep people down.
Mm-mm.
When I had my businesses, I hired better than myself in every situation, and it was easy because specialists are going to be better in those areas. And a generalist is the person who can curate, and also qualify. Qualifying is so important with everything you do, is ask questions. And when you're curious, use the curiosity, in getting that. I'll just finish up with a couple here. Kinga says you feel limitless when you don't care what people think. The shackles are off, so you can be truly authentic, and the people value you will and still will. Here's Paul coming back. I'm curious for a panel. I'm starting to see personal development as monetizing your brain and experiences thought. Brett, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, if you define it that way, sure. Why not, right? I just go back to Donald. And Paul, I think I've shared this with both of you before. That I grew up in the 70s, a little kid then, and radio was really big. And sure, we had TV, but radio was like a big thing, right? And my dad told me, he said, Brett, there's thousands. And remember, back then, the context here is back then in the 70s, there weren't computers, home computers. There was no internet, these types of things that are part of the fabric that we live in today, right? He said, Brett, there's thousands of radio signals falling in our backyard. All you got to do is have a receiver and an antenna, and we can then enjoy the radio. And I took that analogy that he told me during my formative years, and I applied it in 30 years working across 30 countries, right? And it works. You build, Paul, in your case here, back to your question, you can design your personal development, right? Define it however you want. If it's monetization, if it's sharing, if it's charity, whatever it is, you will then attract, okay, and tune in to that radio station. It's no different than a radio, right? So put up the antenna. Never, ever, ever chase something. If you're on the LinkedIn platform, don't chase a number of followers goal. I see that, and I just see phoniness written all over.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that's saying, I want to hit X by Y date, that type of thing as well. Don't chase things. Have goals, right? But you're never going to achieve a goal of any significance without putting up your antenna, i.e., investing in yourself, the antenna and a receiver, and then you can enjoy it. If you're leading with, I'm going to make $100,000 and that type of thing as well, you're going around and you probably will display signs of hypocrisy. And if you're detected,
Mm-hmm.
that's the end of your brand, right? So instead, look within, build your skills, and the marketplace will then reward it. Doesn't mean you don't ask for the right level of compensation, none of that, but you have to do all of those things. That's all part of building up your own brand. But install the antenna, okay, and you'll then start to attract what you're really after.
I think, Kelly, why don't you lead off of that? That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, another great visualization. I love that, putting up your antenna and reading the frequencies, because that is really what we all do with everyone, right? And remembering, and you're so right on the fact of, when we're being inauthentic, people will generally pick up on it. You're not fooling anybody. You may think you are, but you are not. You may fool them for a short period of time, but they will see through it eventually. And just being authentic.
Right.
And I've always said, like, it's hard being me some days. I don't have time trying to be like somebody else. I mean, and remembering things. And that's the other thing I always tell myself. The biggest lie we tell ourselves every day is, I'll remember that. Because I won't. So I've just got to stay authentic with myself. There's so many things about investing in ourselves, and what you were saying too about looking at the $100,000 and those external things, and how everything always comes back to self, because everything is an
Mm.
inside job.
Hmm.
There's nothing external that is going to bring us the happiness, and it may be the goal that we're going after, but why are we going after that goal? Like, what is the reason? And that it comes back to it. It has to be an internal job. Are we doing it because that's what? I mean, it's not going to make you happy by achieving that goal. You may feel great when you get there, but that's not where true happiness comes from. It'll be that moment of feeling probably what he's accomplished, like yay me, I did it. But it's not going to change your life. So I just think it's fascinating how many things that we've always talked about here, and so many different words, that it goes to external and internal, because it is all an internal job, and investing in ourselves and being comfortable with that. And I think a lot of people, and I personally had a difficult time investing in myself because it felt selfish. And the fact of the matter is, it is quite the opposite. Um, to not. And so it is a practice. So even if it is something that feels weird to you, just continue to practice and do something. Invest in yourself, whatever that looks like for you. If it is about learning more, making more connections, having, broadening your network. And when I say that, I mean more meaningful networking, because I'm with you, Brett.
Right.
Those vanity numbers mean absolutely zero. It is
Yeah.
unfortunate. Technology does amazing things like allow us to do this, but it's also done a thing where it puts everyone in this comparison to everyone else. And like, oh gosh, I didn't have as many likes as they did. And how come they get so many
Right.
comments and I don't? Ignore that. Invest in yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. You're right, Kelly. And this instant gratification, I'm glad you talked about that, because I wanted to really throw out those words there. And I know that this applies very much to the younger generations as well. And it's not your fault. Okay. I
Mm-mm.
understand that, right? Because the institutions that you've been educated in have taught you in many cases that, hey, if you finish in fourth place, you still get a trophy, right? But then you get into the real world and you are in fourth place and you don't get a trophy, and then you're all upset, and because there's a culture clash here, right? So I understand that these are the reasons here. So whenever I hear anybody criticizing the younger generations, I look to my generation, because it's my generation that designed the institutions that created this, right? That being said, instant gratification is incredibly destructive. Whether it's social media, whether it's life, whether it's deciding what kind of client you're going to take on board, what kind of business you're going to do, what kind of investment, right, Kelly, you're going to take. If you're expecting an immediate return right away, boy, I mean, you might get lucky, but you might as well go to the casino, for that as well. And then you're rolling the dice, right? So play the long game. Donald, I've heard you talk about that a lot, right? Play the long game. Decide what you want to do here. Invest in the relationships. That's playing a long game, by the way. Investing in the right relationships is playing the long game. Instant gratification, it is a dead end. It is not going to end well as much as you think that it will. Don't be divisive, be inclusive as well. So I see a lot of hypocrites out there wanting to, celebrate this, celebrate that. And so they're wanting to celebrate the inclusiveness of somebody, yet they want to take down other people, right? And that's excluding people. That's not the way to do it, because it's going to be short lived. And we're starting to see this play out in parts of society as well. And without getting into details, it's very important not to just appease other people, because that can wind up destroying all the work you've done to build your brand, build your image, build your business, right? If Bud Light can come crumbling down billions and billions of dollars later, right? Um, Not by the initial mistake, but by the way that it was handled, it can happen to you too. Okay, so you should look at the Bud Light case and look specifically at how it was handled by the CEO. Don't look at what it was initially about and all of this stuff as well. I'm not
Right.
getting into that, but look at how it, and look at even how it was handled as early as last week, where there was a halfway apology, um, but it didn't address the concern, and it made it even worse. Shave off a couple $1 billion more. So a lot of times in life, it really boils down to how do we handle certain things,
Yeah.
because these things that we're talking about are going to happen. This adversity is going to happen. How do you then handle it that way? Look at the Bud Light case and apply it to whatever you're doing. There's a lot of wisdom right there.
Well, I think, you make a great point. And what I'm starting to realize is that everything, as far as investing, that's important comes down to communication. Like Brett's point, did
Right.
the person who sold it to you communicate transparently and comprehensively as to what you were walking into? When did you communicate with yourself? Nothing is wrong with what you do if you know that's what you want to do. I mean, if your goal is to take 10 grand and go to the casino and go double or nothing, and you know that's what you want to do, then if that's what you want to do, you should do it. But if you go there thinking you're going to make money, then that's a mistake. And the other thing is responsibility and accountability has to come from within, right? If you make a mistake, just acknowledge it, right?
Own it.
You don't
Yeah.
have to enjoy it. You don't have to be proud of it. Just say, and when people tell you something and your first instinct is to justify, deny, come back with a reason, is you're really talking to yourself again, because they don't know what's going on in your mind. And now you just told
Great point.
that you're sensitive to it. And I think if everybody paused before they said something, that they would be so much better. Because, to Brett's point, I look at long-term as bringing shock absorbers to the journey, right? To Kelly's point, if you're watching a stock every 10 minutes, you're going to lose your mind.
Yeah.
And it's, the worst part about it is it's not going to change the stock.
No.
Right. I mean,
Right.
but my son
Yep.
used to want to make small bets on football games on Sunday, $1 or $2, and we'd make the bets. And I would always say, "Hey, John, I hope you win every one of your bets." And he said, "I don't think you mean that." I said, "It doesn't matter because it's not going to change the score. Why not start with a good
Right.
intention?" Right? The result is determine who gets paid here, but at least I could wish you a win. And I think if people look at that, and that's where trust comes in.
Yeah.
Right? Where someone tells
Right.
you things and don't expect anything for it. Good advice is something that's given from the heart for a benefit to somebody. And one thing I will say for me, Kelly, and Brett is wisdom and experience go so far in looking back at investments you made with who you made them with. And then the next one you have a filter to relate it to. Hey, this is the same thing I got in with Jim 20 years ago, and it just going down that road. And that's where it's not so much making bad investments, not keeping bad investments, right? And that's a lot to do with what's your intent. If someone says, "I'm going to put $100 in, when I make $20, I'm out," right? That's good. But some people will start gambling.
Right.
Well, I went in for 20 and I got it, but now I want 40, and you keep pushing that exit point, and then all of a sudden it drops in half. And then you pull your hair out. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? So I think, it's balance, being with people who are balanced and trusting people to share information you normally might not share, but say, "Hey, I'm going to put 100 grand into this real estate deal." Right? I trust you to understand real estate, and you got no skin in this game. What's your thoughts? That's what a community like this does, is eventually you make conversations, but to Brett's point, who can be a workout buddy that will make you run faster because they're already faster than you? It's stepping up in class.
And they want you to win at whatever you're doing. It doesn't necessarily mean they want you to beat them, right? It doesn't, but they want you to be successful, or you to reach your full potential, right? I define leadership quite simply, and that's creating an environment where everybody around you can perform at their potential. And my potential is different than Kelly's potential, is different than
Mhm.
Donald's potential, is different than Paul's potential, etc. And so everybody's different. So the painting stereotypes are out of my vocabulary, right? Because we weren't built that way. And so don't get sucked into the media and other institutions that's trying to put everybody into a box
Ugh.
based on skin color, based on your religious beliefs, based on what country you're from. Don't I've worked across 30 countries, right? They're all different. Okay, I can tell you so. And Africa was one of those countries, and I specifically had oversight for 6 countries in Southern Africa. They're all very different. So when people say, "Oh, the Africans think this," I know right away that they're either a hypocrite or they have no idea what they're talking about, because there's not a such thing as an African where they're all the same. That is not the case at all. They're all very unique.
Yeah,
Right.
you could say
The
that about
individual. I mean,
Kelly.
sorry, I just that it's so mind-boggling to me when people do that. And from a management perspective, this was one of the things that I loved about working with a team is managing them as individuals, because everybody's different. They have different
Right.
strengths. They learn differently. They take instruction differently. Some people need a little bit more. Now, I was never a micromanager, because my feeling was always like, if I need to micromanage you, what do I need you for?
Right.
um, but everybody learns a little bit different. Some people are very comfortable having more room to be creative in a project, where some other people need more strict guidelines in order to achieve, or needs a little extra push, or seeing when
Right.
someone, like, you see the potential, and it's fascinating when you do it from the other side. And I always think, and I have managed people from all over the world, and they're fascinating just as individuals, and how many things that I learned from them. But knowing when to, nudge enough to push them to something that they never thought they could achieve, and how those
Yeah.
little things in life, that investment of taking the time to see what the potential was and to nudge them towards it and see them achieve it, and then go, that changed the course of my life just by you treating me as a human being.
Yeah.
And
That's the
that's,
ultimate. Yeah.
I mean, and in management, I was never one, and I've worked for many of managers or had bosses over my career that were very secretive about, like, certain
Yeah.
processes and procedures, as if somebody else knows it, then my value is gone. And my feeling has always been, and I've told people, if you're hiding something from other people, that's about your insecurity, because you're not protecting your job. Trust me. Um,
That's the definition, Kelly, of irrelevance.
right.
Right.
And
Yeah.
my feeling
Exactly.
was like,
Yeah.
I want everyone that ever worked, with me, to be better at my position when they get there. I feel like
Hmm.
that's what we're supposed to do with people who are up and coming, and it's almost, that parent child thing. You want your child to be better than you, have things better, have better opportunity, and soar. There's nothing that feels better than investing in others to see their brightest potential. I love that. What do you
Yeah,
think,
I mean
Don?
that's the best way on a legacy, and to define a legacy, and how that makes you feel, Kelly. I can tell. And my parting message. I know we're low on time, but my parting message today would be that if you're not working for a leader of the mindset of Kelly and Donald, for example, you should start looking elsewhere, because some people say the grass isn't greener. The grass is greener.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to find it sometimes, right? You have to
Mhm.
find it, but don't buy into that mainstream media. The grass isn't greener, it's the same everywhere. That's not true, right?
That's
Find a
right.
leader. If you're not, if your boss and your boss's boss, I always talk to people about those two levels. That's important, because your boss could be gone like that, right? Well, they
Mm,
both could. But look at your boss and your boss's boss. If they're not like Donald and Kelly, and you've heard enough from them in this session to hear their leadership philosophy, if you're not working for people that have that philosophy, they may have a different style, but the same philosophy, then it's time for you to get out, right? Start searching for people, because they do exist and there's plenty of them. You have to find them. You have to do the due diligence. It's not just about a job. Because if you're not working for people with that type of leadership philosophy, then you're doing yourself a disservice, and in effect, you're tying yourself up. Don't do that. Take the shackles off. I think as Kelly or Donald, one of you mentioned that earlier in this program, and that's a great analogy. Take them off, but you need to evaluate your boss and your boss's boss.
Yeah, and I think it lends itself to building your own dream instead of someone else's, caring about your dream more than other people probably will, or you'll care about theirs. And and I think that's the key is investing, but also disinvesting, getting out of things, out of people, out of situations that aren't serving you. Or put it this way, you got to be opportunistic for yourself in the most honorable way possible. Right. And you got to know what you need, and you got to go shopping for it. And if what you have doesn't satisfy it, then, it's not right. Kelly, last words for you?
Yes. Well, again, the fastest hour of my day always.
I couldn't believe
Awesome conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's always great to have you here with us, Brett. And everyone, thanks for being here. And as I always end, please go out and shine so bright that others can't help but shine too.
Wow.
Wonderful.
I love that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I want to thank the audience. I want to thank Brett, Kelly, as always. We are great workout buddies, and we always drive each other to greater lengths than we would have without each other. And I think that's important, is why not take advantage of growing on the shoulders of others before you, right? They opened the road, they softened the market, they made it easier. And I'll close in saying, like I always do, if you can't do it, maybe we can together. And I think there's hope there. So with that said, rest up in 23 hours. Actually, Beverly is going to be a new guest next week. I talked to her the other day, just a great lady. So it only gets better, and everybody's getting better together. So with that, take care, have a beautiful day, and we'll talk tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you.